guys should be able to get on there, check it out. And I'm gonna share it to Instagram as well. Just one second. All right, here we go. Moyak, Stockton. Seemed like a really good one for some and really tough one for others. I know I had a limit, but it was tough. We got Chad and Spencer here. Chad finished third. Spencer finished second. Chad, congrats, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Spencer, is this your first like your big win? Like, is this the best you've done so far for kayaking?
I guess I won a night series tournament here on Lake of the Ozarks last year, one of those yak pots, and this is the best in like a main series solo event that I've done. So
That's cool. That's cool. It's exciting. Well, guys, let's literally just jump right into it. Chad, let's start off with you. You guys ended up actually tying, but Spencer had a bigger fish. But you talked about your bite a little bit at the awards and whatnot. But tell us maybe about your practice and how your day went.
yeah, so I got on the water Friday for practice, but I didn't get on the water till after the sun was up. I think it was maybe 8 or 8:30. So the top water bite, I felt like it was over. It was already slick, calm, and bright sun. So I didn't even really mess with that in practice. The area of the lake I fished was clear water, about 4 foot of visibility, and the bushes didn't really seem to play too much. The fish seemed like for me they were out in front of the bushes, maybe like 4 to 6 foot deep. And I was on a really good bite in practice on a wacky rig, stick worm, and I was seeing a lot of fish cruising the area that I was in. It was in a cove that I feel like they would spawn in. Had a lot of good spawning banks in it, and it's a cove that I caught spawning fish in the past. So I was seeing the fish swimming, cruising around on the bank. I would cast that stick worm around and I would get bit it felt like pretty easily. So I just left that area and spent the rest of the day out on the main lake trying to fish deeper. Caught a couple fish out in deeper, like 25-foot deep brush piles on a drop shot, and I played around with a football jig and a swim bait and all different kinds of things, but never got on any fish that were what I consider good fish. So, and there wasn't very many bites out there considering the amount of time I spent out there. So I just kind of made up my mind to go back and stick to fishing inside the coves and kind of fish more around spawning banks. And I don't know. I feel like the fish were post spawn, but it seemed like there was still a wave of them that might be moving up to spawn. And then I was seeing a lot of fry around. So there might have been I might have been catching some fry garters too. But you kind of guess on what you think they were doing. I don't really know if they were you know if there it seemed like there might be some more getting ready to spawn to me. But anyway, that's kind of how it went. But in the tournament, of course, I don't know what changed. It seemed like the weather didn't change much, but when I got in the tournament, I didn't see any fish uh, cruising the bank anymore, and they wouldn't bite that stick worm. Fortunately, we started the tournament at 6, and had plenty of good morning bite. So I threw the popper around and was able to catch 3 of my best 5 on the popper early, which really uh, gave me I was a little bit relaxed that I was caught 3 better fish early, and I was like, okay, I got the rest of the day to try and grind out a couple more and get a decent limit. So, but man, after that the morning bite died, um, I struggled for like 3 hours, and then I was trying to catch them on that wacky rig, it just wasn't happening, and I started pitching a beaver around the bushes, and I did catch one like right kind of in the bushes. There was a 17 that settled me down. That was probably around maybe around 12:30 or something like that. But I just kind of spent the rest of the day just working the beaver around, and I fortunately caught. I did catch a couple like 14s to fill out my limit, and then I caught the last big upgrade, which was like a 16 and a half that gave me a couple 2.5, maybe 2.5 more inches. But that was like 6 minutes left to go. There was like a shallow brush pile. I pitched up in there and caught the 16 and a half. So it wasn't fast and furious. I think I caught 8 fish all day, and just kind of had to grind it out.
Yeah, it definitely was a grinder, and know, after Truman, it seemed like it's just gonna happen again. Like, is this really what's going on? Two tournaments in a row. Typically in the past, it seems like we've hit the flooding lakes at the right time. But it seems like it's just been a little bit different this year. I was really hoping it wasn't going to be, um, as tough as Truman, but it seems like it really was. And I mean, there was a lot of fish caught, but there's a lot of smaller fish and all that too. So,
I think
Spencer, let's
I think there's a like a common misconception that when the water gets up in the bushes, the bite's on fire, and it can be. I think if the water comes up, not a huge amount like it did at Truman, but if the water does come up in the bushes, I think the bite can be good, but um, it also like spreads the fish out and gives them a lot of places to hide. So it can make it tougher too because they get so scattered out and they're kind of hard to get to sometimes.
yeah, it seems like they almost need time to adjust up there in the bushes versus it flooding and they're running to it. Especially where they're at in their spawn and all that during the spring. But it's definitely like that was my first thought with Truman. It's like cool, we can flip some bushes, and that may have been the case for some guys, but other guys, they weren't catching them there either. So it's always interesting. Let's jump over and talk to Spencer. Talk to you, Spencer. Did you get to pre-fish at all, like during the week or the previous weekend?
No, no, I didn't. I never had time to. 2 weeks ago, prior to the tournament, I went there with a couple buddies of mine in a boat, and I did pretty good by the dam. But I know by the dam can be extremely hit or miss from day to day. And my personal experience last year, I found a ton of fish that were, perfectly good, cruising shallow fish. I could see like 80 inches of bass in one pocket, and I show up there on tournament morning, and I could only scrape away with like 50 some. So I wanted to kind of redeem myself this year after last year's Stockton tournament in a way. And I decided to go up the river to some places that I've fished before. I've had luck in the past. I've never really done bad in these areas I went to, so I figured I couldn't go wrong if the water was up a little bit. Um, but yeah, I never had any time to pre-fish. But as far as my bite for the tournament goes and everything, um, I kind of just jumped straight into any bushes I could find, anything that looked kind of like spawning pockets. I know we had a full moon coming up, rising water. It was set up really well for a spawning bite, so I assumed that was what was going on. But I started off with a bone popper, throwing that around. I caught a few males out the gate, and I had a limit in about the first 30 minutes or so, but they were all about 14 inches long. I mean, it was just a bunch of males up there. So after that, I went ahead. I tried a few different areas and actually ran out to some main lake flats where the channel swing kind of butted up against them. But they've been running a lot of generation through Stockton the last couple of weeks because of the crazy rain that we've had here in the state. So I started throwing around a weightless Senko around some of those bushes. And that's whenever I caught about a 19 incher. And that was my big fish for the tournament. But that was just kind of a random deal. I caught a male next to him. I could see the fry everywhere. And then about 50 feet down the bank, a little opening in the bushes, I just pitched that thing in and I grabbed it. So kind of panned out nicely there.
Yeah, man. I know that like last year, I know you were pretty stoked about Stockton. I know your pre-fishing went really good the time you got, and I was joking around with Robbie at the shop, and he's like, Spencer's all hyped up. I was like, he's all hyped up last year too, and it didn't really pan out. So,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, was
know.
it? Do you think it was just like your adjustment as far as going to a different location that panned out for you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people buy the dam. I've seen it so many times. I fished this lake a lot in May, where you could absolutely crush them one day, and then the next day, not a whole lot changes, and they just completely relocate for whatever reason. I just feel like for whatever reason, up the river arms is a little bit more consistent. I don't know if it's just because it's more of a largemouth population, and the smallmouth and everything else about the dam kind of screws you over sometimes, or what it is, but. I always do consistently better up in the river for that reason. So that's kind of a big reason why I decided to do that there this year.
How did you catch your big fish?
That was a weightless Senko, just flipping around the bushes, and I called a couple more times after that later in the day. I found a few kind of bluff wall spots up there that had some current brushing up against them. I actually see eddies on the backside of the trees, and I caught a few good fish in the Ned rig, and I couldn't stop catching walleye either. So every now and again, after every two or three walleye, you'd find like a 15 or 16 incher that'd pull you a few inches, and that's kind of how that went.
That's cool. That's cool. Um, I pre-fished on Monday, and I was pretty stoked because on Monday I caught, I don't know, probably I caught a bunch of smallmouth and one largemouth, and I was like, cool, this will be fun, at least catching smallmouth. But of course, Monday was like pre-frontal conditions with some rain, and it's amazing how much it's changed, from Monday to Saturday. Chad, you talked about you fishing on Friday, pre-fishing. Um, when you go pre-fish, like what's your strategy there? What's your game plan kind of idea? Are you just kind of, you probably know most of these lakes and know most of the areas that you want to go to, but are you going there just to check out water clarity, temp, different stuff like that? Or are you actually looking to catch fish?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal strategy for practice is to go out and find fish without catching them. I definitely I won't sit there and sore mouth a bunch of fish. I want to have confidence that there's fish in the area. And, sometimes I like to stick a couple just to see what's there. But, I don't stick around an area if I feel good about it. I won't keep fishing it. I'll move on and try and figure something else out. Um, it's you hear that's the thing you always hear about guys talking about how many fish they caught in practice and everything. And very rarely do I catch a limit in practice. If I do, I must be on an amazing bite because I usually just keep I'll just keep leaving fish. So if you keep catching them, then that means you're catching them in new spots. But usually that doesn't happen. And usually going into the tournament, I don't really know what's there until the tournament because I've tried not to really lean on them very much. But I definitely try to get some confidence in an area, you know, like you said. I mean, checking out the water temperature, the water color is huge. General activity level, just indicators like birds or bait fish, and you make sure you're in an area you feel like there's life in the area. And if you get some bites there, then that's good. Then just kind of leave it alone, or maybe go a mile or two and try and expand on that area, but not beat up an area.
Yeah, it seems like guys are like, I've got to pre-fish, or guys are like, I'm not going to go pre-fish because it's not going to give me, like it can be completely different. But I think I've done both. I feel like sometimes I've done better without pre-fishing, but like especially for Moyak, we've been to most of these lakes. We've seen them, we fished on them, so it's kind of like kind of where you're going, or a good idea. But it's definitely hit or miss. Spencer, what about you, man? How do you feel about pre-fishing a lake and all that?
I pretty much agree with exactly what Chad said. As long as you can find them without really sticking into them. But the biggest thing is, I think it's trying to predict where they're going to go too. Like, let's say you have a major front come through, major weather change, and you're finding all your fish up shallow, something like that. In one area. All that can change overnight, and then you're just kind of left without any sort of backup plan. So one of the biggest things is just finding some sort of alternate bite that you can go rely on that'll pick up, or you could do something else besides what has now failed, on tournament day, whenever you might have been catching that way for a full week, and they'll leave you high and dry like that sometimes.
Yeah, it's also, there's so many different variables as far as if you're fishing a lake that you've never been to before, pre-fishing is completely different than like I've been fishing Stockton for like 30 years. So I'm not like trying to learn areas as much. I'm just trying to check areas and see what might be going on in that area at that time. But I already kind of know like some key spots in those areas. So it's completely different depending on the situation. But
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I enjoy Moyak because we fish a lot of the same lakes, and we've got some amazing lakes to choose from. So it's really nice having that opportunity. Um, talking about amazing lakes, our next event is Table Rock. A little bit different this year. Table Rock West, and Spencer, I'll start with you. But what do you think about it being on one side of the lake or condensing it down? I know that's kind of the big talk about that event for this year.
Um, I've never fished Table Rock, so I have no idea.
Okay.
uh, I mean, I know it's a very expansive lake. You know, you've got river arms, you've got open stuff by the dam. But I really don't know anything about Table Rock yet. I do plan to fish that event, just kind of learn and figure that lake out a little bit more. I think tournaments are a great way to kind of pick up a lot fast about a lake, and I'm definitely going to do that. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty far away from me here at Lake of the Ozarks, so I've yet to even fish it.
Yeah, you actually may play to your strength because I like I fished Indian Point, I fished Cricket Creek. All those are on the east side where those are out of play this year. So you may have an advantage going to new water that people haven't been to and come there with an open mind.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't really know what to expect. I'll keep an open mind and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Chad, what about you? What do you feel? How do you feel about him dividing it in half, kind of a deal?
um, well, I mean, just being honest, I'm not the biggest fan of splitting the lake up like that. I mean, I would prefer to fish the whole lake, but it doesn't bother me a lot. I've got a number of areas that I have history with that are within the area we're fishing. Honestly, I mean, one of the things I liked about having the awards in Branson and you know, having the whole lake in play was a lot of people wouldn't go to those far upper ends of the lake because it was like an hour drive and they didn't want to do that. So you didn't have as many people up there. Whereas now we're going to have more people in some of those areas that I like to fish because that's the only places they can fish now. And so, I mean, it's still a lot of water and people can still spread out, but there's going to be some ramps that normally only have two or three people that might have 10 now. So, I mean, I don't love that, but honestly, it's a same, circumstances for everybody. So, you just got to go out and catch them. And I still got a couple spots that are in that area that maybe won't be as popular. So I'll maybe still be able to get away from some people.
Yeah, Table Rock, we always seem to draw really good numbers for that lake, and I don't know if it's just so many people enjoy it or it's easy to get to. We usually get some of the Arkansas guys that'll come up for that event. I know they fish a lot of that southwestern portion of it for their events, and so it'll be good for them to come up and join that as well. I know I was talking to Josh on Saturday. It'll be interesting if he can find a venue. That'll be the kicker. So who knows? We may be talking about this, and then he may be like, screw it, we're going back to Indian Point, and I've got a spot there and whatnot, which I'm sure guys would be okay with that too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because usually we're 100 guys on that lake, in the spring summer, it drops off in the fall for the championship. But that lake, it is very big, but it kind of there's a lot of guys that like the same areas, and you typically see a couple of guys in those areas that you're fishing. But a couple weeks from now for that, so it should be, should be pretty good fishing. I'm sure they're probably going to be well, past, post spawn and all that. And so, I like fishing Table Rock. I've done well there once in one creek, and it seems like I try to always go back there, and then I second guess myself and don't go back. But It'll be interesting. But even from like Kimberling City West, it's still, I mean, it's a lot of water. So it'll be, honestly, it would be really nice for him to find a central location for the West, because that would open a lot of more water there. You got guys that could probably travel, an hour and a half to 2 hours if they really wanted to get up to Indian Point. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see what happens and whatnot. Hopefully it works out where he can find something central. I know that's usually always the tough part, and then somewhere that has enough, parking and space for us. So we'll see what happens with that. Spencer, looking beyond like Table Rock and the rest of the year, what event are you looking forward to, man?
The one that's going to be really interesting, I think, is going to be the Roadrunner that we have. Which I don't know, has Moyak done Roadrunners in the past, or is this a new thing? I'm not even sure.
No, we're following along with the kayak adventure series for Wapello. So it's
Cool.
not typically something that we've done in the past. Maybe before I've only been fishing 3 or 4 years now with Moyak, so I know it's always been like a certain lake. But no, it'll definitely be interesting to see what guys do on that Red River event, because there's so much water there.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited. It's like you can completely change your game plan overnight, go to a completely different area. It's not like on a lake where you have a lot of times one bite over the entire lake. It might be completely different. Somebody might win it completely different than somebody else in the top 10 entirely, and different areas, strategies, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the other thing that's interesting about that event is on their event they can fish Friday afternoon, evening. I think there's like 5 or 6 hours. Don't hold me to this because I don't know the details, but someone could easily get on a crazy good bite Friday afternoon, and then Saturday conditions go complete trash, and that could play a factor. Or it could be the complete opposite. You totally did rough on Friday, and Saturday's so much better for you, and you maybe just have a chance at Moyak. But it'd definitely be interesting. There's so much water there though too, and it's crazy to think about. There's rivers, there's Wapello, there's other smaller lakes and whatnot. So it'd definitely be interesting to see what guys do. Chad, what about you? What event are you looking forward to next?
I mean, I don't know if there's one in particular. I mean, I enjoy the competition. I like all the lakes. Obviously, I'm really focused on the angler of the year. I mean, that's always something that's in the front of my mind, and I feel like I'm not one of those. I mean, I don't win that often on the live events, but I usually am, kind of right around the check range, and I tend to be a little bit more consistent. Whereas I know there's some guys that, they'll win one or two events a year, but then sometimes they have a few really bad ones too that kind of take them out of the hunt for the angler of the year. And I'm always just every event, I'm trying to maintain that consistency so I can keep that going. But I like all of the events, man. I just enjoy the competition, and it doesn't really matter the lake. We're all in the same playing field, and it's just about coming out on that day. So
What do you think about that kayak adventure series event?
I mean, in general, I'm not the biggest fan of roadrunners because it seems like it favors the local knowledge so much. I kind of like everybody being on one lake. It's just too much to try to digest if you're. I mean, Wapapello is like a 4-hour drive for me, and that area of that part of the state, I have like very little experience, and I feel like there's people that probably are real familiar with all the little sneaky rivers and spots that are going to have a big advantage. So, it's going to be more of a challenge, but I mean, I'm definitely I've got a couple ideas, so hopefully maybe I can get something to pan out. But
Yeah, for sure. Are you gonna sign up for the kayak adventure series event too?
I haven't decided for sure, but I might go ahead. I probably will. I mean, I
Yeah.
haven't even honestly. I watched some of that podcast that Drew and them did. Kind of. I guess it was several months ago, but I'm still a little bit confused by the whole thing. So I got to really dig in and make sure I understand how it works. But um, and I mean, I'm really looking forward to the All American Series this year too. We're in the process of trying to book our room for Minasqua, And I'm excited. I love fishing up in Wisconsin, La Crosse, and then going up to Minasqua. It's just we went up there last year, and I mean I wasn't really in contention to win, but I didn't even care. It was just fun. I like being up there. It's a great place to fish, and so I'm definitely looking forward to some of those events too.
Yeah, so looking at the rest of the schedule, 6-8 we got Table Rock West, 7-13 we got Poplar Bluff, 8-24 we got Palmy, and then 9-21 we got Bull Shoals, and then the championship's going to be October 12th to the 13th. So from Table Rock to Poplar Bluff, there's a pretty good gap in there that we're guys can maybe do some more of the online stuff, maybe fish some other All American events and whatnot. Hopefully it'll pan out really well, where we'll have some good time off there to to catch up on things and whatnot, and hopefully it's not so hot. But excited about the rest of the year. It definitely is going to turn into a race with you and Lance now after Stockton, huh?
Yeah, Lance is just somebody who you never can count out. Obviously, last year he only fished 5 events and still came back at the end and took the win. And it doesn't really. There's so much fishing left in the year. The standings can definitely change. I'm glad to get off to a pretty good start this year, but Lance is sneaky, man, because since he doesn't fish them all, he kind of drops down the leaderboard now, and he'll just kind of hang out down there. But you almost forget about him, and then at the end when he gets his 5 events, he'll pop up, and there he is. So yeah, you never know how it's going to shake out at the end.
Yeah. Spencer, where
Hey,
have you?
I'll
Go
tell
ahead.
you too. I wanted to say that, man, there's a whole group of guys. Like since I'm in my 4th year in Moyak now, and I've been watching these guys over the last 4 years that have just slowly become extremely good anglers, and I'm watching the overall skill level of everybody increase, year after year, and it's getting harder and harder at these events because everybody's becoming so good now. So you never really know who's going to be up there at the end.
Yeah, it really goes to show like Moyak has really, grown. We've, as many as numbers as we have, we've got quite a few anglers that can compete not only on the local level, but the regional and the national level. So it's always really cool seeing those guys, and it seems like just about everyone, is very approachable, very open, very, knowledgeable, talking to stuff. Like nobody's like, hey, don't talk to me, I got my own spot kind of deal. And that's like one of the biggest things about Moyak that has been great is like, I go to a fishing tournament, leave with a couple fishing buddies, and we're fishing the next weekend somewhere else. So it's really cool and exciting. Spencer, where are you sitting at in the AOY standings? Do you know?
I haven't looked. I haven't checked it since Truman, and Truman was a disaster, so I have no idea.
Come on, man, you got to know this stuff.
I don't. I'm too busy fixing
Man.
boats now.
Too busy fixing boats and cashing checks, huh? That's all you gotta do. You
Something
just
like that, yeah.
Go work on boats and show up at Stockton and cash a check, huh? You're just like, that's it, huh? That's a life.
I guess you want to put it that way.
Yeah, man. Spencer, tell us what you're fishing out of. Of course, we know Chad. He's an Old Town guru guy. Talk to us about what you're fishing out of, and I think you bought a new kayak this year too.
Yeah, you would definitely know since you rigged it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, by the way. But
yeah, man.
I fish out of a Hobie Outback. It's a 12-foot kayak, and I've got a Bixby on the back of it. J2, isn't it? It's a J2.
Yep.
Yep, J2. They released another one. I can never remember which is which anymore.
Yeah.
But I've got a J2 in the back of that. It is pedal drive as well, fin drive, so that's nice. I do have live scope on that as well, which is a Garmin 93 SV, which Jonathan, thank you for installing that. I've really loved getting to learn that tool. It's very, very helpful to diagnose where they're at and everything like that. So it's a great little rig, and I've loved using it for the last couple months.
Yeah, for sure. I think those Outbacks are great. Really good kayak. Let's talk on that a little bit. And I know this is like the subject in fishing is forward facing sonar. Chad, are you using it? Do you enjoy it? What do you think? What's your opinion?
My honest opinion is if it was banned, I would be happier. Um, but since it's not banned, I have it, and I try to, um, get some benefit from it while not being too distracted by it. And I think that's the key. My opinion is that in a kayak, it's a lot more difficult to use than in a bass boat. And I still think it can be useful. I use it to find brush piles, to check areas, to see if I'm seeing activity or see bait fish. Um, and, I definitely use it, but I also, it's not uncommon for me to not put it down all day. I mean, I might just leave it, I might put it on, and then I probably might not even drop it in the water at all, depending on what I'm doing. But I mean, there are times when, if I'm at Table Rock, coming up here, I'm trying to fish a drop shot or something like that, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to be using it. I'm not super good with it, but I mean, I'm using the Humminbird Mega Live. It's maybe not quite as crisp as like a live scope, but they've made a bunch of improvements to it, and it's pretty good now. So you can definitely utilize it to help you out some.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting and like people come to the shop and like, hey, I want live scope. I'm like, do you really want live scope? Like, do you know, like, and some people it's like, maybe you should just use 2D and side scan and get used to that. Because like where I feel like live scope is huge is going to those new lakes, going to those new areas that you haven't been, because you can literally see the brush piles and make good casts and make put it where you want it. Absolutely, and I think that's where I think that's the real play for kayaking. Now, can you still do that with mapping and side scan? Yeah, absolutely. But you're going to make a couple casts before you know exactly where you're at in that brush pile. The jig head minnow stuff, the casting at single fish, you almost have to be like an octopus on a kayak.
Yeah.
Depending on like if you're running a motor, if you're running, this, that, and the other, whatever. I mean, even if you have an XI3 with spot lock, like you still want to be moving, but you're turning your hand over in your live scope, you're turning your steering, you may be pedaling, and it's like, is it really worth it? And I've contemplated that. Like, yes, it's nice having forward facing sonar. Have I caught fish off of it that I saw, mid level? Absolutely. But I think the biggest thing is like treating it almost like side scan or down scan and saying, hey, there's that brush pile. That's where I need to cast, and I need to make this cast X amount of yards long. I think that's the biggest benefit. But I do think that's so interesting, especially in the basketball realm with 8 units and 3 transducers and the XR and whatnot. And it's always interesting. Like I love selling it, but I'm also not going to sell it to someone that is going to get frustrated with it. So it's like, hey, just start off with 2D and side scan and down scan and all that, and go from there. Like if you can figure that out, then live scope will be a great option. And so I think that's always great. And I was interested, Spencer, with you. I know you've just got it too. I mean, has it been enjoyable for you? Has it been a tool? What do you think?
There's a time and a place to use it, in my opinion. I've had days where, like whenever I first got out, I was really trying to just get used to it, adapt with it, get better with using it and fishing for bass here in Lake of the Ozarks with it. And I noticed that some days, if I'm just there staring at the screen, I don't do nearly as well as I do fishing the bank. And that might just be because that's how I've grown up fishing, here in the lake for as many years as I've been, kayak fishing here on Lake of the Ozarks. But I've always fished shallow, so that's just kind of where my roots are. That's where I have confidence. But there is definitely a time and a place. You just can't have it be a crutch. If that's your only thing and that's all you can do, it will shoot you in the foot sometimes. You can't do that. But I mean, you also can't have only shallow bite too. You just have to, make the read, figure out whether it's more viable to be using live scope offshore or mid range, or if you need to fish old school.
No, I agree. I definitely think there's a time and a place, and it can be a crutch. Honestly, I think I don't have Hummingbird, but I know their side scan's really good. But to me, Hummingbird is the like using 360. I think is almost the play for kayakers versus a live unit. You know, because you can put that 360 down and see exactly around you. It's not live. It's not like you're seeing your lure and all that. But I think that's a really good play, specifically for kayakers. Even if they want to do that and not do a traditional down or side, I think that would be a great option. But it's always interesting to see, Chad, you've been doing this a long time. So it's always interesting to see your opinion, also with like Spencer being so, new to kayaking but not new to fishing, where that spectrum is. So it's always kind of curious. But I think Hummingbird,
Well,
that 360 would be really good.
my advice to anybody would be that live scope would probably be the last thing I would spend money on. Like if you got a limited budget, I would spend money on my kayak, motor, my other like I would want a bigger screen. Like there's no point in running live scope if you're using like a 7-inch graph or something like that. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
running a 10-inch helix, and I feel like that's probably the minimum size I would want to use. I mean, a 9 will work, but any less than that, I feel like you're kind of wasting live scope. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, there's so many things that you can spend money on that you're going to get more benefit out of than live scope. That unless I would wait until you have everything else dialed out exactly the way you want it before you drop the money on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think you can get like even on the other spectrum of rods, reel, tackle, line, all that stuff is that your line that you're using is a direct component to catching that fish or landing that fish. If you're using cheap line, you may not you may have issues there. But no, for sure, I agree. So it's always interesting to see and hear what people think and whatnot. And I think everybody's have kind of blown it out of proportion. I don't know what it was like when they came out with side scan. Was it like, oh, it's the devil's juice? Like it's always interesting to hear. Everyone's either for or against it on live scope. And if you're a crappie fisherman and like fishing brush pile, you should do it. Like it's a no brainer because crappie school up and whatnot, and I'm sure that's a lot of fun. But bass are different. It's tough, but. Guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on here and doing this. Excited about Moyak. We're doing a lot of stuff this year, trying to do a lot of more social media stuff and getting your guys' names out there. I appreciate you guys taking some photos afterwards as well. I sent this over to Troy, so hopefully we can get them in, some of the articles and whatnot. Hopefully it's not your true juice that we're giving out to everybody, but it'll be fun to see some cool stuff. But no, I really appreciate it. Aaron couldn't make it tonight. I guess he was having an allergic reaction. Or he didn't want to tell us about his fishing because he likes to keep it to himself. we'll give him a pass on this one. But seriously, Chad, Spencer, thanks for coming on here, guys. Chad, anything else? Anything you just want to share before we get out of here?
Well, I mean, I just want to say thanks to you for doing these podcasts. And, when I first joined Moyak, that was a big thing that attracted me is you and Josh were doing the podcast, and I watched all those. And, that, and, I see you at the awards and you're trying to run the live video feed, and you're taking pictures, and all that work that you do to support Josh is appreciated. And also, I think most people probably know, but man, Troy does a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes on the website, running, figuring the standings and doing those surveys and doing the recaps, and all of that work that he does behind the scenes really makes Moyak stand out and look professional. And so, the combination of everything that you guys are doing to help Josh, and then of course Josh does an awesome job too, and puts a ton of time into it. We're lucky to have all of you doing that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's been fun. It's enjoyable. We want to grow the sport, and if you can't grow it at the local level, then you're not doing something right. But it's definitely growing for us. Spencer, what else? What about you, man? What else you got for us?
Basically, the exact same stuff Chad said. I think the way that this sport's growing so rapidly here in Moyak and any other kayak series around the nation it's pretty cool to watch all this stuff just expand so rapidly. You know, I've only been in Moyak for I think this is my second year fishing these tournaments, and even then, I haven't fished a full series before. This is my first attempt at actually fishing every single tournament in the series. Um, but I really do appreciate everything that you guys do to help promote this sport and these tournaments. It's such a unique thing for kayak tournament fishing. A lot of people don't even know that it exists still. You know, you'll have people who are on a boat. I'm sure you've experienced this, both of you guys, where you'll have people during a tournament on a boat. They're tournament fishing somewhere, and you tell them that you're also in a tournament, and they kind of look at you weird, like you're in a kayak. That's not possible, but they just don't know.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely growing, definitely moving. But seriously, guys, thanks for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. This will be on YouTube, so you guys can go back and watch it too if you want. But share it with your friends or your buddies. Also, if you are, if you saw the link on Facebook, easy way to get notifications on that is go to our YouTube, follow the YouTube channel. Now you guys get that as well. But really appreciate you guys coming on here. Good luck the rest of the season. Hopefully, maybe we'll have you guys back on here again for a different event and awards. But really appreciate you guys coming on here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.